Good morning. I know this is the first time we've had a Rising Star breakfast since May, so everyone's excited to be together. Good morning. I'm Nancy Wheeler, the Vice President for Investor Relations with the MetroHartford Alliance. Oz apologizes that he can't be with us today. He's in Montreal at a conference, but Susan Dunn and I have done this several times together, so we're looking forward to introducing you again to Alice. This is a unique collaboration with the United Way, and we're going to learn a little bit about Alice today. When Erica meets Alice is going to be engaging, it's going to be informative, and I think it's going to give us all some tools to make a difference in this community and in the communities in which we live. I want to thank the United Way and the team at the United Way for all the work that they've done to help bring this program together. And I'd like to thank my colleagues, and especially Julie Daly-Meehan, the Executive Director of HYPE, Hartford Young Professionals and Entrepreneurs, who really played a leadership role in the program this morning. I'd like to remind you all of the Alliance's mission, and the Alliance's mission to compete aggressively and successfully for jobs, talent, and capital for the Hartford region, while ensuring that the region is positioned as a premier place for people to live, play, work, start and grow a business, and raise a family. And we're going to learn a little bit about raising a family and the challenges of raising a family. And so this partnership today and this breakfast is just vitally important. Our thanks to Munich Re and Hartford Steam Boiler and the team at Hartford Steam Boiler. Greg Baratz is President and CEO of Hartford Steam Boiler and participates and is engaged with the Connecticut's Insurance and Financial Services. So thank you to Hartford Steam Boiler for the sponsorship this morning. Our event partners, United Way and Comcast and NBC Connecticut, have really been instrumental in the program. They will be engaging all of you in a unique way. I think we're going to find Alice fascinating, compelling, sobering, and so get ready to think, act, and do a little role playing. Thank you to our hosts, the Marriott, great friends and partners, and thanks again to our media sponsors, the Hartford Current Media Group and Fox Connecticut Media Group. We'll be introducing 6 new Hartford investors this morning. When I say your name, if you just stand so you could be recognized, that would be great. CoLab in Hartford specializes in purpose-driven strategic branding, relationship building, messaging, and design. And with us today from CoLab are Kevin Chick, Constanza Gowan-Segovia, Melissa Harris, and Lorena Iturino. Are you here this morning? Thank you. Thanks. I hope I got those names right, so thanks. Okay. Easy Accessibility Solutions by Ellsworth LLC and Windsor Locks is a family-owned company that has provided medical and home accessibility supplies to individuals and institutions for over 30 years. Here today are Bob Partain and Nikki Lee. Thank you. Global Horizon Home Care in Bloomfield provides personalized services that empower clients to remain in their homes safely and independently as long as they choose to do so. With us today are Brayard Gordon and Gwen Steedman. Welcome. Thank you. S&I Companies in West Hartford is a premier provider of recruitment and staffing services, specializing in administrative, finance, accounting, banking, and legal staffing across a wide range of industries. Today joining us are Wendy Ward Struthers and John Chapman. Okay. The Workplace in Bridgeport is one of 5 workplace development boards in Connecticut. It is also a convener, catalyst, and advocate for workforce development in Connecticut and nationwide. Its Platform to Employment program offers businesses a risk-free opportunity to evaluate talent before hiring. With us today is Lashwan Alexander of Platform to Employment. Lashwan? Thank you. And the Right Team in Coventry. The Right Team offers business and technical communications consulting services in the form of training and staffing. Sheila McBride of Right Team is with us today. Sheila? You'll want to mark the next Rising Star Breakfast on September 17th. We are going to be hearing from the superintendent of Hartford Public Schools, Dr. Beth Schiavino-Narvez. And Beth is going to be talking to us about her education reform and how the Hartford Public Schools are preparing students for work and preparing them to support their families, to contribute to the region, and make a difference to the city and to Hartford. So we look forward to hearing what she has in store for Hartford Public Schools. So Erica meets Alice. Let's get started. I would like to get started by introducing Carrie Lee Mayland. Carrie Lee is an anchor with NBC Connecticut. Many of you know Carrie Lee weekdays at 11 a.m. and again from 5 to 6 p.m. She's been on the desk for some major continuous coverage, including the freak October snowstorm, which we all remember, the tragedy at Sandy Hook Elementary, and the blizzard of 2013. Before coming to NBC Connecticut, Carrie Lee spent nearly a decade in Philadelphia, where she was a main evening anchor. She also anchored Good Day Philadelphia and launched the 11 a.m., 5 p.m., and 6 p.m. newscasts. Prior to that, she was an anchor and reporter in Boston and Washington, D.C. She began her career in Phoenix at KSAZ and KTAR Radio. Is that right, Carrie Lee? She has received multiple Emmys and awards from the Society of Professional Journalists and from the Hearst Foundation. Carrie Lee grew up in Canada, graduated from the acclaimed Walter Cronkite School of Journalism at Arizona State University. We're honored to have Carrie Lee with us today. Thank you, Carrie Lee. Welcome.
Good morning, everybody. I'll tell you what, walking here this morning and coming into this room, I had no idea the energy that you all generate. What a fun event. This is a really fantastic breakfast event, and you may see me at some in the future because this is really, really just a powerful group of people. I had the pleasure of meeting many of you already this morning, and we're just so thrilled as NBC Connecticut to be part of this and to really learn more about what happens here. Being part of supporting the United Way, the MetroHartford Alliance, it's just really a fantastic event. So thanks so much for having me. It's my honor as much as it is anything. I do want to introduce you to someone really, really special who's new to us at NBC Connecticut and someone we're still getting to know, and that's Susan Tully, our brand new leader, our CEO and GM. She's right at this table here. If you can give her a warm welcome. And the other person that I've gotten to know this morning is the other member of Team Red, and you'll see her in just a moment. It's Erica Hill. She's sitting at our table here, but I want to tell you a little bit about her first. She joined NBC News in October of 2012. Prior to joining NBC, she spent a lot of time with other networks as well, with CBS and CNN, covering a wide range of national and domestic stories, including the 2008 elections, the shooting of Gabby Giffords, as well as the aftermath of the earthquake in Haiti back in 2011. She was lucky enough also to cover a lighter story that a lot of us watched very carefully, the royal wedding of Prince William to Catherine Middleton. She's interviewed many newsmakers, including some of the biggest names there are, President Barack Obama, former President Bill Clinton, as well as British Prime Minister David Cameron. She was also part of the NBC News team that won a Peabody Award for the network's 2013 cross-platform effort. It was called In Plain Sight, Poverty in America, highlighting poverty in 21st century America. She's a Connecticut native as well. I got to hear a little bit about her family in Clinton and how thrilled she is to come back home. And we're just very, very happy to have her here. And I want to welcome her up right now. Here's Erica Hill.
Thank you. Thank you, Carrie Lee and Nancy, and thanks to all of you for being here and being up early. This, as Carrie Lee said, there is such a great energy here, and I sense a really great commitment too from all of you, and I think you're really going to be even more inspired for different ways that you can help the people in this community, people who you may even work with and didn't realize needed a certain level of help and understanding. It's interesting, this is a topic that I get, and I think a lot of people do, when you think back about how you grew up and stereotypes and maybe the way even you perceive who the working poor are and who are some of these people in our communities. When it comes to stereotypes, I think in Connecticut, we get them all the time. I went to school in Boston, I traveled around a lot, I lived in California, I lived in Atlanta, and people would say, "Where are you from?" And I'd say, "Oh, I'm from Connecticut." And immediately, their reaction and sort of their perception of who I was changed in a split second. "Oh, you're from Connecticut. You must be from Greenwich." Actually, I'm not. I'm from Clinton, where we don't even pronounce the T. And I would say, no, I'm not. I grew up, far from Greenwich, and not everybody in Greenwich is who you think people in Greenwich are. But it's interesting that there's immediately this perception of Connecticut as this very wealthy state, where people don't need things the way that they may in South Georgia, for example. And yet, we have all of those needs right here. That's a stereotype that we can overcome. Yes, it's a wealthy state, but there are so many people in this state who are not up there in that 1%, and who may not even have a hope of reaching it, but they want to give their children the opportunity to have that hope and to have that opportunity. In Connecticut today, 1 in 3 families, 1 in 3, struggle to put food on the table and to pay their bills. So last November, United Way's from around Connecticut and in 5 other states released the ALICE report. So who is ALICE, since we're all meeting ALICE this morning? ALICE stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Employed. In the simplest terms, these are the working poor. These are people who have jobs, and in many cases, good jobs. But stretching those dollars is increasingly difficult, if not impossible for some people. ALICE families actually live above the federal poverty level, but they live below the basic survival budget threshold. So what does that all mean in plain English? The federal poverty level works out to if 2 adults work 35 to 40 hours a week and together make about $40,000 in a year. Imagine trying to support a family of 4 on that. They would need to make about $65,000 just to meet the basic cost of living. That's being able to pay for things like housing, transportation, childcare, food, utilities, and healthcare. That's what's considered a survival budget, and that's really tough for a lot of families in Connecticut to do. So there's going to be an activity in a little bit where you're all going to see firsthand what that is like every month for some families in Connecticut. But before we get to that, I'd like to introduce you to Greg Kozlowski, who's the Executive Vice President for Business Insurance at Travelers and also the Chair of United Way's Board of Directors, who's going to share his ALICE story with us.
Nice job. She was going to go with Greg T, so I'm impressed she got the last name. Good morning. I have a saying in business that we use a lot. When you're talking, you're not learning. And when you're listening, you're learning to talk. And so if you think about how profound that statement is, you guys get that. It's preaching to the choir. You guys are all here trying to educate yourselves and learn a little bit about something inside our community. And so I want to talk to you about 2 things, the United Way and 2, the beneficiaries that the United Way does in our local community. First, United Way, I've been part of it for 7 years now, and you'll hear a little bit of the reason why I've been part of that. But as I do, I'm a little bit of a math weenie. Anytime I jump into a board, I usually want to get right on the finance committee and understand how prudent that organization is around their resources. And I can assure you, I was on the finance committee for 5 years. I chaired it for 4 years, and it is an amazingly disciplined organization. Very prudent with its expenses, and when we saw the housing crisis drop, so did our expenses, and a focus on making sure that every hard-earned dollar that's contributed to United Way is being passed down to those needed beneficiaries, so I can assure you that. The United Way is very focused on 3 constituents, children, number 1, and families and the working poor. and children, families, and the working poor. And we're going to talk about the working poor today. But that is something I believe in hugely. When we drive businesses in our local communities, it's all about measurements. Do we actually have the ability to get a desired outcome, measure that, understand the variance to the expectation, and adjust? And so many times when you give your hard-earned dollar out, you don't have that framework. The United Way is that medium that does that for our organizations. And the dollars stay within our 40 local communities that the United Way locally here is focused on. So firmly believe that the hard-earned dollars are being prudently managed and given into our local communities. So all of you that contribute for that, we thank you very much. As we talk about Alice, Erica just went through the numbers. 1/3 of our households in Connecticut, and let me give you a little bit of the absolute numbers just to put a little gravity around it. We've got 1.4 million households in Connecticut. 141,000 of those households are at poverty level, 10% of the households. 332,000 of them are what we call Alice households, that Erica just gave you the definition of. So 473,000 households of 1.4 million, 1/3 of them are working poor. And that's what we're here for. How do we rally? How do we educate? How do we change that? How do we mobilize people to make sure that we're doing something about that? I will share with you 30 plus years ago, I'm not going to date myself that much, I'm going to go with 30 plus. I was in Ellington, Connecticut at Windermere Elementary School, and I was raised by 3 women, a mother, a grandmother, and a sister. So I'm a pretty badass sewer. I can cook pretty well too. I've picked up farming and motorcycles just to kind of balance myself out a little bit, but that's all kind of a facade. But single mom, raised in a single household, and she was a home economics teacher, hence the many female qualities that I possess. Making whatever it was, $12,000 a year, very difficult. We were working poor. We were absolutely working poor. And I can remember being in the lunch line in Windermere and being embarrassed. You know, the 140 days, whatever it was, I used every diversion tactic possible as I put my subsidized food voucher up on the lunch line every day because I was just embarrassed. And think about that. I thought I was the only one in the school that needed that subsidization. And clearly, I didn't manage that. It was a product of my environment. To this day, I would never change it. It instilled the work ethic in me and gave me the family values that I possess today. But the children that are out there that think they're the only ones, when 1/3 of our households in Connecticut are in that working poor. So today you're going to do a game that resonated hugely with my life. And you're going to do it, and I call it a model. You know, it's not a game. A model is, in a classic definition, you know, is a replica of something larger. And so when you go through the game, recognize that 1/3 of the households are going through that same level of very difficult choices in economics that you're going to go through. So again, thank you all for coming out today, and appreciate all you do for our local community. Thank you.
So you will have this model, since we're not calling it a game. You're going to work with the people at your table. And I think we can, as we take those personal stories, I'm sure you all may have a personal story that you can bring to this as well, that will hopefully allow you to get a better understanding for where people are at. Most of us are very fortunate to be in this room today. I know my husband and I are in a better position than either of our parents were. When we were children. That's not to say that either one of us ever wanted for anything, but there were plenty of struggles, maybe not to the degree that Greg had in his family, but I think we all know what that's like. My dad was ill for a number of years before he passed, and my mother would say all the time, thank God for the health insurance that I have as a teacher, because otherwise we would have lost our house years ago. And these are things that families struggle with every single day, waiting to buy those back-to-school supplies, not just for tax-free week, next week in Connecticut, but until they actually have the money to buy a new pair of shoes for their kids because they don't want them to feel bad at being the only kid in school without that new pair of shoes for the first day back or when they have to go to the lunch line. So as you take on this model and this activity, making choices, you're going to divide your table into 2 groups. So essentially you're creating 2 families. Each family is going to be given a packet of information. And in that scenario, you will learn a little bit more about your family, the number of children that you have, your careers, your total monthly income. And then you'll also have your bills, because we all have those. You will get a budget worksheet to work that all out. And then there's going to be another envelope in there titled an opportunity envelope. Don't open that one. You can open everything else but that one. We'll tell you when you can open it at one point during the exercise, so just hold off on that one for us. You're going to have 15 minutes to work together as a family to determine how you're going to make ends meet. And as soon as you get your packet, you can begin. United Way staff is going to circle throughout the room in case you need anything, in case you have any questions. And I think your packets should be making their way over to you. Thank you. So, we've all sort of been walking around and lurking, quite honestly, eavesdropping on your conversations to see how you're all dealing with this exercise, how you're handling it, how you're making decisions as a family. So Morris picked out a couple different families for us to talk to, including one right here.
Yes, so we have the Johnson family right here. So do you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about your family scenario, how you made ends meet, and share with us your opportunity?
Okay, we are the Johnson family, and I'm a single parent with my bachelor's degree, attending part-time at night. I'm having a hard time making ends meet. I have a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old, and my youngest is 4. My babysitter is sick, so I have to rush to pick up my child from school after my shift. I'm pulled over for speeding and receive a $300 ticket that I must pay. I also have a monthly credit card debt of $350. I visited a United Way supported volunteer income tax assistance site to get my taxes done for free, saving money on tax preparation. I learned that I qualify for an earned income tax credit. My refund is $1,000. Note that this is a one-time credit that does not recur monthly. While at the VITA site, I learned about the United Way volunteer budget coaching program. I can enroll, and through working with a budget coach, be able to save an additional $250 this month.
All right. Okay, so we had to do some very creative cuts here with Alice Johnson. We went down to a 2-bedroom apartment, 3 kids and 1 mom, 2-bedroom apartment. We were able to cut off a couple hundred there. We suggested that she cut back the air conditioning if she has it, or the heat, really try to cut the utilities down by about $75 a month. We felt like she couldn't get rid of her car because of the issues with, unless her work is right next to her daycare and it's right on a bus line, which would be unusual in our community. We had her hang on to her bus. We did suggest that she find a friend or neighbor to do some babysitting swapping with, maybe someone who works a different shift than she does. And we're able to try to cut down her childcare from $1,000 down to $500. We suggested that she put her kids on Husky. Hopefully that's free. We weren't familiar with the levels, but she has a pretty low income. And also get herself a very high deductible plan for $100 a month. We suggested also that she visit local food pantries and other organizations that could help her cut her grocery bill, and that she negotiate with the credit card companies to take her payment way down until she can get in a better situation, get a degree, get a better job, and be able to pay off the credit cards. So we were able to get her $10 a month below her monthly income.
Wow. And how tough was that? I mean, you're sitting there, and you did have a lot of great suggestions, ways to cut, hopefully, if they all work out. But how real did this scenario feel for you, and how difficult was it to be in that scenario?
It was an amazingly wonderful experience to live through these people's lives and to realize what they go through each day. It was really incredible.
Yeah, I was going to say, when my son was young, I was a single mom, and it was in a very similar situation as a secretary, and it was very difficult. the daycare costs were astronomical. I almost decided not to work because daycare was so expensive. So I've been in the situation myself, and it takes a lot of creative juggling and a lot of sort of nervousness at the end of the month that the car won't break down, no new expenses, nothing unexpected will come up.
And when you were in that situation personally, and you're dealing with all of this, did you feel like you knew where to turn if something did happen, if the car broke down, if the daycare wasn't available?
I had a close-knit church community. I did not have family in the area. I knew that I could turn to my friends and to my church. Besides that, I was not aware of anything, and it didn't even cross my mind at that time to maybe go to a food pantry. It just wasn't in my realm of thinking, so I was not familiar with any of the services that were available to me at all.
Do you think this has changed your view of the working poor in the state of Connecticut?
What a valuable lesson.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
So we have one more family to share, the Davis family, and Bobby's going to tell us how they made ends meet.
So we had the Davis family, definitely overwhelmed and struggling. Two parents, one who recently lost their job as a waiter, and two children, ages 4 and 7. And we've got some student debt. One of the spouses is working towards their bachelor's degree, and we've got about $2,200 in monthly income. So we essentially went through the process basically based on necessity. We couldn't go for the 3-bedroom, we had to go for the 2-bedroom. We wanted to get our kids healthy snacks, but that cost us a few $100 extra a month, so we had to go for just the 2 meals a day. We made a lot of life choices. Car insurance was too expensive, so we had to go with bus transportation. Healthcare was also very overwhelming and expensive for both of us because, for both parents rather, because as a waiter and as an aide, it cost us $1,000 a month in childcare. So essentially half of our take home went to health insurance, which we were able to zero out through a lot of different programs through our opportunity. Entertainment, forget about it. We wanted to take our kids to the museum, we had no money. When we wanted to take them to the movies, $25 was too much. We had our utilities bills that we had to pay for, we had our student debt, and there was a lot of other costs that we couldn't really negotiate or move around with. So we were able to, through a lot of the different programs through the United Way, after-school care, subsidizing some of the grocery expenses, as well as helping us through the tax assistance program, VITA, through United Way, we were able to get $1,000 back up front to help with some of those costs. Definitely felt very overwhelming and very strugglesome to kind of put ourselves in that scenario.
Did it change at all? We just talked about how it sort of changed the perception of what this is like on a monthly basis for families in Connecticut. Did it have that effect on you as well?
Yeah, it's unbelievable from the standpoint that you don't have to go that far. It's literally in our backyards, our neighborhoods, our coworkers, the people around us that are experiencing this every day.
And in terms of the services, you were saying in the exercise, you found a lot of the services through United Way, and those things were there. Do you think that they are visible enough for people who find themselves in this situation? Do you think there's something more that we all need to do to let them know that there is help out there?
Yeah, I think United Way has a great presence here in our community, but I think definitely if I was one of these parents, I would just be so focused on the day in, day out of the struggle and the overwhelming sort of experience of just trying to take care of my kids that I wouldn't really know to go to United Way, let alone know how nice it is outside. So I think there's probably always an opportunity for something like this to kind of get out there.
You say that it's got to be a constant stress level. So how many of you, just by a show of hands, felt that stress in the midst of this model exercise? It's pretty much everybody. So you're feeling today what families throughout Connecticut feel on a daily basis, where, as we just heard, they probably don't even know if it is nice outside because they don't have the energy to go outside and find out. I want to at this point bring in Susan Dunn, who's president and CEO of the United Way for Central and Northeastern Connecticut. As we look at this, one of the things, we'll go up here. One of the things that was mentioned that I heard walking around the room too, childcare. Childcare is such a huge portion of a monthly budget for many families. It's necessary because they have to go to work. Right. How are they juggling it though? How are you finding that families are juggling it?
Well, it's difficult. There are programs, Care for Kids, that help families afford quality childcare. The program's United Way funds allow for a sliding fee scale so that, again, based on your income, it can become more affordable. But when you look at the Alice survival budget, 28% of the budget is in childcare. And if you add housing costs onto that, it's over 50% of your survival budget is just going to those two items, childcare and housing.
And remind us again what that survival budget is.
It's about $65,000 for a family of 4, which is 2 adults, and we, in our family scenario, we have an infant and a toddler, because those are very expensive years for a family.
You're talking not just about childcare, but things like formula and diapers and
Absolutely.
constantly growing out of their clothes.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. And as you said earlier, if you're working, 2 adults working minimum wage, full-time, that's about $40,000 a year. So you've got that gap between $40,000 and $65,000. And when half of the jobs, 51% of the jobs in Connecticut pay less than $20 an hour, you've got some struggling going on.
And we should remind everyone too that even that $65,000, that's just basic needs. I mean, this is
right.
Maybe I don't pay my electric bill this month because my car did break down.
Right. It's a survival budget. It is not a sustainable budget. A sustainable budget for a family of 4 is about $111,000 in this state.
So almost 40,000 more than 50,000 more, actually.
Yeah.
You mentioned the sliding scale for childcare. That's just one of the programs. I know the United Way has a number of programs for families to help them get through the month.
Absolutely. One of the things that we're supporting with the Hartford Foundation, the City of Hartford, Hartford Public Schools, is community schools. We have 7 community schools where the kids get childcare. The parents also get assistance that they need. So that's a great model that we're supporting. We heard it, the volunteer income tax assistance. Last year, $27 million just in our 40-town region in refunds and credits to about 11,000 tax filers. So again, these are working individuals, so we're pretty excited about that. We have our volunteer budget coaching program, so people can get involved in that, where it's a one-on-one budget coaching, a volunteer with a working individual, helping them to budget, helping them to save, being sure they get all the income supports they're entitled to. And we have our Workforce Solutions Collaborative, which again is helping people gain the skills to have a job that has a living wage.
All good stuff.
Thank you. Thank you. And before you step off the stage, we're going to get Erica one of our bracelets from our Women's Leadership Council. And as those of you who've attended our Power of the Purse know that this is a partnership with Easter Seals. And the Easter Seal students put these together. They're made in America. And we're going to let you pick if you want silver, gold, rose gold, or burnished.
So many choices. Excellent. Well, good. I will wear it with pride. Thank
Great.
you. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be a part of it this morning.
Thank you, Erica. I'm going to move over here to the podium, I thank you all for participating in our Making Choices. I hope that it really was a great experience for you. I'm not going to say fun or really wonderful, because I think it's more of a sobering experience when you go through it and carry it with you for today and many days going forward. We're doing this. If you were here last year, we kicked off Alice. We're doing this really to keep the conversation going around working families in our community. And so if you would like more information about Alice, we're going to ask you to do something we usually ask you not to do. We're going to ask you to take out your cell phones. And we're going to ask you to text, and I guess we're not going to have it up on the screen. We're going to ask you to text. Did they put, there it is, Alice CT, ALICE CT to 51555. And when you do that, you will be able to get more information and download the full Alice report. So you can certainly take a minute. You have permission to do that right now. We won't be offended. I won't be offended. Go ahead and please do that. Also, those of you who were here with us last year, remember that we sort of teased the Alice report because it wasn't released, and we had a panel discussion. And on our panel, we had representatives from the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving. because the Hartford Foundation, in partnership with others, including United Way, had released in the spring MetroHartford Progress Points. And they've just released an update. So again, that would be something you might be interested in. And again, it talks about the continued, our work, just released this report, and it's the progress really that we can see toward better schools, family-sustaining jobs, and stronger neighborhoods. All of these are really critical to Alice, and so it's a great companion piece to our Alice report. Very, very simple, great graphics, and so again, I encourage you to get that at metrohartfordprogresspoints.org. All right, so what can we all do to help children and families in our community? Well, we can certainly volunteer. It takes volunteers and budget coaching and all our VITA sites, our volunteer income tax assistance sites, so we look for you to do that. It takes your voice. It takes advocating wherever you go to talk to folks about what's important for working families in our community. And it also takes financial support. So, and that's coming up in this fall campaign. So I have a great honor now of introducing Greg Baratz, who is President and CEO of Hartford Steam Boiler, and we feel it's incredibly appropriate that Greg is our chair this year of our 2015 campaign, given that we just celebrated our 90th annual meeting, and right there 90 years ago was Hartford Steam Boiler, along with Phoenix and Conning and Company. Leading executives from those three companies were the founders of our United Way back in 1924. So please join me in welcoming Greg Baratz.
Good morning. Thank you, Susan, for the introduction. I enjoy following Susan because it's one moment I get to adjust the mic up slightly. So I appreciate that, Susan. Like many today, I'd like to share a little personal story about myself as well, and also give you a little explanation why I'm standing here today being a United Way chairman leading the campaign for this year. I grew up one of 6 kids on a cattle ranch in Oregon. My mother was a full-time mom and a substitute teacher. My father worked the ranch 7 days a week, 365 days a year. This is a profession with no paid vacations, no benefits. All 6 kids at a very early age worked on the ranch a lot. Still to this day, we kid our parents that they had 6 kids for their own labor force. And they still have not confirmed or denied those statements we've made. But like many families and like these exercises we went through today, things were always tight, very tight. In the pack of 6, I was number 3, which means I always had a fantastic selection of hand-me-down clothes and shoes. The shoes were the tough part, but the clothes we could make work. Agricultural communities are geographically spread out. Our nearest neighbor, depending which direction you pointed the compass, could be 1 to 5 miles. One would think that this physical distance would translate to a personal distance. That was hardly the case. Ranchers, farmers face tremendous odds. You could lose your entire income in 1 year, or even your life savings by a single storm, or disease to livestock or crop. It's a tough life. And that means that we face tough times as well. And there were times when we needed our community and our friends and families to step forward for us as well. When this happened, the outpouring of support was always amazing. They all showed up. As a young man, I remember wondering where they even came from. And many of them I didn't even know who they were. But they all helped in their own way, big or small, and every bit of it mattered. It was an incredible security to know that you could get help when you needed it. It gave me an incredible sense of feeling of community, that you could bring a group of people together and you could drive a tremendous change in people's lives. I left the ranching life when I went to college, graduated and pursued my career. I met my wife in California and began my family. My job took me to Texas and ultimately brought me to Connecticut. After moving to places where we had no extended family nearby, I continue to find that friends and greater community actually played a greater and more important role in our lives. When I accepted the job with Hartford Steam Boiler, I became a lot more familiar with the greater Hartford area. I was amazed at the level of commitment of so many companies and individuals to make their community better. It was nothing I'd ever seen before in the communities I lived or worked. The time that people spend volunteering, the money people give to organizations that they cared about, the energy and the passion they put to their causes was absolutely blew me away. And everybody in this room and in many of the communities in here, you should be incredibly proud of yourselves. It reminds me of a place I called home growing up. I'm fortunate that my story is one of privilege. Sure, we struggled at times, but we rarely went without. We were always loved, and our parents sacrificed their needs to ensure our future. And fortunately for some, love too often is not enough. No matter where I've lived, I've always seen the same thing. People with great opportunity and those with tremendous challenges. For those with opportunity, support from their family, friends, and others around them is enough to help them overcome their challenges and struggles. But for those that are challenged, very challenged, love is not enough. They need more, sometimes a lot more. That is why I'm committed and I'm proud to be the campaign chair for the United Way. It offers a network of support for those who are really in need, whether a young child or a single parent. Each year, this organization mobilizes people and workplace in the community to support children so they may become successful in school and life, and families so they may become financially stable. This work is grounded in the belief that if we remove barriers to success, our community will be a better place as a whole. All of us working together can and are making a significant difference. And I hope when it's time to give to the campaign, you'll give and you'll give generously. Thank you in advance for all you're doing and what you'll be doing in the future to make this community better. And I look forward to meeting you and spending some time with you through the campaign. Thank you very much.
Greg, thank you so much for that heartfelt story, personal story. And we heard from Greg T., we heard from our two Gregs this morning, and those are just two stories. Each one of us has a personal story or know someone, or maybe you don't know someone, but if you look around your workplace and you look around your community, you can be sure that there is somebody who is having to go through what we all went through this morning. So our very sincere thanks to Erica Hill for walking us through an experience that I think we will take with us for a very long time. Thanks to the United Way and NBC, Carrie Lee, for making this possible. Thank you again to Hartford Steam Boiler for the sponsorship. But mostly, thanks to all of you for taking the risk, for putting yourselves out there, for participating this morning, and taking with you and in your heart the knowledge that we can make a difference, the knowledge that we can make a difference in this community, the knowledge that we can make a difference in the lives of the people around us. So thank you again. Thanks to all of you for participating. And go outside and look at the sun and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.